It's your first time, welcome. Excited to have you here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. As Lauren mentioned, when we do the breakout rooms in a little bit, you don't need to feel the need to turn on your camera, but if you could just accept that invite, that'd be great. So we have a lot of participation. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Once I do this, you're going to see if you want to make my face a little bit bigger as I'm presenting. It's likely going to be a small box in the top right-hand corner of your screen. What you can do is next to the screen sharing green bar at the top of the screen, there's going to be a couple dots to the right, and you can select the side-by-side view from that menu, and then just drag the corner of my face out in the box, and it'll make me a lot bigger so you can see the presentation, but also me as well. So let me go ahead and get going here. Today, we're going to be talking about how to generate energy to specifically drive productivity, but really just energy in general. And if you've been in the past couple sessions, you've known that we're always surveying and interviewing people with American Happiness across the country, really gauging what's working well out there in terms of mental health and wellness and energy and stress, but also the things that people are struggling with as well. And the two big things that we've heard over the past 6 months specifically has been that stress levels are fairly high and energy levels are fairly low. So today we're going to be going through the structure of the previous workshops we've done, sharing a little bit of the science, how to create more energy, and sharing those top tips across the country, as well as the following workshop on December 2nd, we're going to get into how to use stress to your advantage. So let me give you guys a little bit of my background in case you haven't been here for the past couple weeks. My name is Michelle Wax. I am a UConn alumni, and really how American Happiness Project started was filming a documentary across the country. So back a couple years ago, we traveled to every single state in America, all 50 states, and set out to film the American Happiness documentary. And really what this was to capture how everyday people are creating more happiness, joy, fulfillment, meaning in their everyday life, regardless of external things. Because obviously stressful things are going to come up, right? Worrisome things are not going to go as according to planned. But how do you really focus on what you can control day to day to bring more fulfillment and joy into your everyday life? So we've had a lot of great press recognition over the past couple years. I've been able to work with a lot of great companies, schools, and organizations. And now what we do today in our workshops is we combine the science of how your brain is hardwired, really how to start using that to your advantage to, in this case today, generate more energy in your daily life. And we also combine this with all the research that we did throughout the documentary and we continue to do up until this day with what's really working out there in America, right? We're for everyday people. And so our documentary was filmed and we really wanted to capture, like I was saying, everyday people. So we chatted with people in informal situations like this farmer's market, restaurants, bars, and also in more formal settings. And our documentary is set to come out in early 2021. So be on the lookout for that and make sure at the end of this or the end of our next workshop to sign up for our email list so you can be on the list to receive notification when that is out and released to the world. So these are a couple different examples of the people that we've interviewed. At this point, it's been hundreds and hundreds of people, but really want to capture people from all different walks of life. So Monroe here had been in jail. Austin from Kentucky had his house blown away by a tornado. June had stage 3 cancer. Veronica just really didn't like her job very much. So we want to capture a variety of different external circumstances, but focus really on the core of those things that you can do daily that are within your control, because often other people or outside circumstances are not. So like I said, we're going to combine a little bit of the science high level today with what's happening in the mind and the body with energy drain and also energy generation and how to start using that to your advantage. And then share the tactical tips and strategies that you guys can start implementing in your day-to-day life to create more energy, feel more alive, feel more energetic when you wake up in the morning and throughout the day as well. So I like to share these images because I feel like, especially now with more people being at home more and more, kind of a typical scenario, right? To just be feeling kind of sluggish or drained or just not the best. And often it can seem as though, maybe we're getting enough sleep, We're still tired, right? Halfway through the day. And so I'm going to get into why that is today and really how to tweak that a bit to have more energy, not only at the start of the day, but continuously throughout it to generate more of it. So today we're going to get into the simple science behind common energy drain and generation within the body, how it really begins a lot within the mind and it affects the body probably much more than you might even realize. We're going to get into how to identify your own personal energy drivers, which is going to be different for everyone, but it's really, really important to figure out what these are for you and how to implement them in order to go about generating more energy throughout the day to day. And then finally, the top strategies and tips that you guys can start doing as well. And as Lauren mentioned, we're going to have 2 breakout sessions. Don't feel the need to turn on your camera, but please make sure you are joining those just so we have interactions and people have great groups. So getting into the energy component. Now, for the past 2 sessions, I've mentioned our primal wiring of our brains, right? Really how our brains were wired hundreds of thousands of years ago is the exact same coding and wiring as our current day or our modern world. And so I want to take you guys back again to this primal time of when your brain was first wired, was first created as human beings. And if you were at our Science of Happiness workshop initially, you'll remember that the brain was wired to protect you. It was wired to keep you safe, right? In our primal times, really, we had to protect ourselves from being attacked by wild animals and protect our communities and families. And so your brain is wired to be on high alert at all times. And it's wired to look out for what could go wrong, not what could go right. And that's why our brain naturally skews to that place of worry or stress. It's no one's fault, but this is the way that your brain is wired. And it takes effort to train it out of that place. And that's what we got into in the first workshop of this series. But you guys have likely heard of the fight or flight response, right? In our primal times, this was something that was embedded in us to really keep us alive and to protect us. And what it is essentially if you sensed a threat in your environment, like this bear here, your body went into this fight or flight response, right? Your body and mind. So you sensed a threat, you had to either fight to protect yourself, to keep yourself alive and safe, or you ran away, flight, right? And so our body is embedded with this fight or flight response that goes off when we sense any type of threat. Now, this was relevant in our primal times, right? And these are a couple examples of what's happening within the body and mind when this response is triggered, right? And you guys have all felt this fight or flight response go off, right? The most common example I can give is when you're driving on a highway and out of the corner of your eye, you see someone who's about to swerve into your lane, you kind of jerk the car, right? And you narrowly avoid that and your whole body feels it, that response, right? All of these things are happening almost immediately. And so a lot of stuff is happening within the body when this gets triggered. And to get a little more in depth in this, we won't go too in depth, but it's very, very interesting when you start looking into the 2 sides of the nervous system here. Now, the fight or flight response is really needed for short-term survival, right? Picture that there's a bear 5 feet away from you. You got to react. You got to either fight or you got to run away to protect yourself. Now, on the other end of this, the parasympathetic nervous system is your rest and digest. It is your recovery stage. It's needed for long-term survival because when your body is in that state, your body is rejuvenating, it's restoring, it's what's happening if you're not feeling so well and you're sleeping a lot more. That's because when you're sleeping, your body's in this state. When you're feeling relaxed, maybe watching TV or reading a book at the end of the day, you're feeling really, really relaxed, maybe drinking some nice tea. Your body is likely in this parasympathetic state if you're immersed in a really good book or something like that. Now, what happens is that, again, this fight or flight response's sympathetic system can get triggered by any type of threat at all. And in our primal days, it was normally a very real threat, right? Such as a wild animal. But our body is wired to handle this in the short term, right? Often what happened is you encountered a threat, whatever that might be. You either ran away after a couple minutes or you stand and fought it, you defeated that, the threat was gone. Your body could restore to this parasympathetic nervous system state, this parasympathetic state that's really needed for long-term survival. It has a lot to do with your restoration within the body. But the interesting thing about human beings and human beings alone is that this fight or flight response can be triggered by perceived threats in our mind. And this is where a lot of energy drain starts that not that many people even realize. So perceived threats could be anything like a big presentation at work, a difficult conversation you have to have that you're going over and over again in your mind. Maybe you're about to have it or you just had it. Stressful situation, worry about the future, tension in your relationships, even standing in line or being late. This is triggering this fight or flight response, this physical response within your body by thought alone. So all these different things are happening often below the surface when this thought triggered fight or flight response goes off. Now, what happens is that if we stay stuck in this thought triggered fight or flight response, we're triggering this, constantly. It's not really the state our body is meant to be in long term. We're going to get into this in our Using Stress to Your Advantage workshop. But this is what leads to chronic stress and illness and disease long term, is when your body is constantly in this fight or flight state, this sympathetic nervous system state. And a great illustration or way to really convey this using something that you guys have likely all done is driving a car, right? So picture that the sympathetic system, that fight or flight response is you hitting the gas of the car, right? You're either flooring it or you're doing it, gently or whatever it is, you're moving. The car is moving. Now, the parasympathetic system on the right-hand side here, that's the brake. It allows you to slow down, to rest, to stop the car. But what happens is that often, a lot of the times, especially with everything happening in the world now, our brains are constantly triggering this fight or flight response through stressful news articles, emails we're reading, social media, text messages, just kind of going over things in our own heads, right? You're constantly triggering the sympathetic system. So essentially, what it is happening is your body is being knocked out of balance, which causes energy drain, and it causes you to feel sluggish and just not the best. And it's when you wake up in the morning, you might be feeling pretty good, but by 11 a.m., you're feeling sluggish and depleted. You need another cup of coffee. So essentially, what happens is with all this stimulus coming in at us all the time, we have the pedal to the metal on the car, right? And we're flying down the highway. We can't stop. Our brain is constantly going through all the things that could be worrisome or stressful or those difficult things that are occurring. And we really need to take time to restore balance to those two systems. So essentially, the car is at rest, right? Because, of course, it's important to go to be able to move and to have that response, but it's also important to be able to brake and stop and allow your body to recover, to remain calm. And this is something we're going to get into a little bit more in the workshop December 2nd with the stress. But I want to mention it here today because it really goes into a lot of energy drain as well. So I love this picture because I feel like this is a lot of people's heads nowadays, and in general too, right? Where you just feel like there's so many things happening. It's causing a headache. It's really causing a lot of energy drain within the body, not just the mind. So to get into how to start generating energy, and again, we're going to go a little bit deeper. I want to save this for the stress workshop, but into how to balance those systems December 2nd in really simple ways. But in terms of generating energy, when we're having all these things bombarding us, and often we have to deal with situations that are unpleasant or not ideal, that can cause this energy drain, or we can just feel fatigued or sluggish. But how do you start generating more energy? And we're talking about generally generating energy naturally, of course. So I love this quote from Brendon Burchard, who says, "The power plant does not have the energy, it generates it." And if you think about this with human beings, right, we don't have a finite amount of energy each day, right? Energy is always coming, it's always going, we're always taking it in, converting it, giving it out. It's always flowing. Energy can't be created and it can't be destroyed, right? So we can always generate more of it just like a power plant would. So the 4 areas to really focus on in terms of maximizing to generate energy more of are these. So sleep, food and drink, body and movement, and daily activities. So the first component is, of course, sleep, right? Likely everyone knows that it's very important to get sleep, but I want to get into what's actually happening in the body here and some tweaks that you can perhaps make in your sleep routine that are going to affect your waking hours as well. So often, I know I do this quite a bit, I try not to, but most of the time when we wake up to an alarm, we'll snooze it, right? And it seems as though when you snooze an alarm, you're actually doing good for your body because you're allowing it more time to sleep, right? But this is actually not the case at all. When you're deep in sleep and your deep REM cycles, your body starts to prepare yourself for waking up to 2 hours before you actually wake up. All right. So different things are happening within the body and mind to get you to that state where you're finally ready to wake up. Now, what happens is that when you touch the snooze button, you tap the snooze on your alarm or your phone. What happens is that your body, when you fall back asleep, it gets it gets really plummeted back into that state that when you wake up again in 9 minutes or whatever it is for you, your body is pulled out of that deeper cycle and it goes into a state of sleep inertia. And this is often a feeling of feeling groggy or drowsy, and it can last up to 4 hours when you snooze your alarm, right? So say you wake up at 7 normally, you snooze till 7:09, your body goes deep into that state, and it hasn't gone through a full cycle, which is about 90 minutes. And so since it hasn't, it's really getting pulled out of that and it's causing this sleep inertia a lot of the time. So this is why, when you can have plenty of sleep or have gotten 8 hours of sleep, you maybe snooze your alarm once or twice, you get pulled out of it and you even feel more tired, often because sleep inertia is happening. Now, sleep inertia can last up to 4 hours. A great way, if you do this to get out of this sleep inertia state, is cold. So either going outside in the cold, which is easy to do now, at least in New England, or splashing cold water on your face or taking a cold shower. All right. Now, the second component of sleep is looking at your cell phone, right? So we've likely heard this as well, but your cell phones and really any devices, iPads, computers, TVs, it emits often this artificial blue light that, again, it's messing up that internal clock within our bodies, suppressing melatonin. It makes it more difficult to fall and stay asleep. So if you do wake up in the middle of the night, I encourage you not to look at your phone or your computer or anything at all because your body is going to be really pulled out of that. It's going to affect the wavelengths and it's really not going to be that easy to fall back asleep. If you look at your cell phone, that's probably the most common thing. But ideally, don't pay attention. Don't look at your phone in the middle of the night, or even really 1 hour before bed. Experts recommend 1 to 2 hours. 2 hours can be a little tricky, but I would say if you can do, the more time the better. 30 minutes to an hour, not looking at your phone before bed. It'll allow you to get much deeper and restorative sleep. Now, the third component of sleep to generate more energy in the waking hours is to wake up at roughly the same time and go to bed at roughly the same time every single day, even on the weekends, because it's been shown that the amount of time is roughly as important as the number of hours of sleep. So if you can go to sleep, 11 p.m., 10 p.m., whatever it is, try to wake up the same time in the morning and keep that schedule going. It's going to help a lot over the long term. So in terms of sleep for energy drain, don't snooze, avoid screens 1 hour before bed, and create a sleep routine as best as you can. Now getting into food and drink. So food and drink is both on the digestion end of food, but also the intake of food really affects our energy levels a lot more than we are taught to believe. Digestion, takes up a lot of energy. And to give you guys an example, you've probably all experienced, say you have a really heavy lunch. Maybe it's a huge sub or pizza or whatever it is. In the afternoon, you just feel kind of blah, right? You just feel kind of down. But if you eat light throughout the day, your body is not using as much energy for digestion. And so you're going to have more energy throughout the day. So to save bigger meals for nighttime where you don't need as much energy, maybe you're kind of winding down, is often more beneficial to have more energy throughout the day. And the foods and drinks that take up the most digestion are the things that normally taste really, really good, right? So it's things like alcohol, it's a lot of digestion energy, any type of carbohydrate, so bread, pizza, pasta, things like that. It's going to require more energy to digest, and it's going to leave your body exerting more energy. Meat, protein, it requires a lot of energy. So if you're feeling as though a bit sluggish during the day, I'd start paying attention to what you're eating throughout the day, and is it requiring more energy to digest than something that's a little bit easier to digest. The second component of this is to start looking at ingredient labels, because a lot of the times things that are advertised as healthy, or even things that might seem like they're okay to eat, they have a lot of chemicals, or they have a lot of processed ingredients in them that your body is not meant to break down. And so again, it requires more energy to do so. So start looking at ingredient labels. You can't really trust, before this, I was in the food industry, and you can't really trust what's said on the front side of the package. You got to turn it around and look at that ingredient list. And if it's something like this, or it even has, a bunch of things that you don't know what they are, you can't understand, it's probably going to end up draining your energy a lot more. So if you're feeling sluggish or fatigued, start paying attention to what's in the food you're eating. And if you need suggestions, go for those more whole, unprocessed foods, because they require less energy to digest. And once they are digested, they're actually giving you more energy. So it's a win-win. You can find a lot of great foods that aren't just, raw vegetables. There's a lot of good components in this. But I encourage you to start, becoming aware of what foods are perhaps causing that drain or that sluggish feeling, and replacing one or two if you're able to. Now, the second component of this is liquid intake. And when we're short on fluids, one of the first signs is a feeling of fatigue. So if you are feeling fatigued or tired or sluggish, I would recommend chugging a glass of water, because it seems really simple, but often it helps a lot. Water is essential for carrying nutrients to cells and to take away waste products. So it's really helpful in the entire process of the body. And it's been said that it's recommended to drink half of your body weight in ounces of water per day. So if you weigh 160 pounds, you'd want to drink 80 ounces, which seems like a lot, but if you have water near you, if you're on the couch or at your desk, it's pretty easy to drink that amount throughout the course of the day. So that would be about 5 coffee mugs full of water, or you could get, a bigger bottle that you fill up once or twice. The third component of energy generation is body and movement. So in terms of body and movement, again, this doesn't have to be anything too wild, but it's important to be moving our bodies each day in order to really be generating energy. So it could be anything. It could be going for a morning walk. It could be doing some jumping jacks in the middle of the day. This is something I like to do when I'm feeling just kind of tired around 2 p.m. I'll stand up, do, a couple jumping jacks. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. And I feel instantly energized. And sometimes you have to force yourself to do this, right? I know yesterday it was kind of a rainy day here in Boston at night, and I didn't want to get up at all. And I was just kind of like lying on my couch for a good amount of the time, or a good amount of the day. But I forced myself to get outside, go for a walk, and I felt much better. I felt more alive and just energized for the rest of the day. Something else to pay attention to is your posture. If you're feeling tired, right? Because normally when we're feeling tired or just don't have a lot of energy, we lie down on our beds or on the couch, and that's not really helping, right? Like you see on the photo here. So pay attention to your posture. If you're at work, are you slumped down on your desk? How are you sitting? Are you lying down? If you are, force yourself to get up and start moving, and it helps a lot. The fourth component of this is daily activities. Now, we all have different things that are going to energize us. For me personally, I really like to get outside in the morning, go for a walk, ideally in the sunshine. That energizes me. For some other people, they don't want to do that at all. Great. It might be cooking for them, or connecting with friends over FaceTime or Zoom or in person. And so what we're going to get into in a little bit is determining what are these things that energize you and how can you start incorporating them into your daily life more. So again, it doesn't have to take up much time. It could be getting into nature for a little bit, watching a funny video, learning something new that you're interested in. But we all have different things that energize us. And back in about, when was it now? I would say back in April, which was kind of the heart of quarantine, I was just feeling kind of down, kind of sluggish, not really feeling the best. And I started tracking what was going to energize me, what was going to bring some excitement into my life, what was going to really get me out of this state of feeling quite blah, is what I called it. And I called it the blah list. And at the top of the list, I had, Michelle, are you feeling blah, as a question mark, right? That I could hang on my wall. And whenever I was feeling blah or not the best, I had a list of things that would energize me. So for me personally, it was, watch a funny video. It was to do some jumping jacks, to get outside for 5 minutes, and just being aware of those and tracking it and incorporating it. And most importantly, forcing yourself to do it, even if you don't feel like it. It's going to get you into a much better state. So we're going to break off into the first breakout rooms. And I'd love for you guys to share 2 or 3 activities that really light up your life, that you feel excited to do, even if you haven't done it for a while. When did you last feel energized and excited? What do you enjoy about doing that, whatever it is for you? And are you doing this as much as you'd like in your daily life? So I'm going to go ahead and I'll send out this prompt question as we break out into breakout rooms. But again, if you could accept the invite, that would be great. Back in, feel free to share the activities that you'd like to incorporate more of, or maybe you're doing a really great job already incorporating it in to your daily life. Feel free to share those in the chat, and we will keep moving along here. All right. So in order to really determine energy drivers, it starts with self-awareness, right? And we discussed this in our past 2 sessions. Self-awareness is really the starting point for any type of change in your life, because we need to know where we're at in order to really change or improve in any area. So to determine your own energy drivers, and these are really areas of life or times of day or positions you're in or areas you're in that are influencing your energy, and you might not even realize it in this moment. So to determine your own energy drivers, what we need to do is to become self-aware in this. And the area, or the start to it, is start to track, start to audit when you feel energized and when you don't. And again, this sounds very simple and straightforward, but what happens is that patterns develop over time, and you'll be able to become clear of them, even more clear than you might already be, when you start tracking when you feel energized and when you don't. And I recommend setting an alarm on your phone every couple hours throughout the course of your day in order to track a couple different things. So every couple hours, what you'll want to do is keep a track record, and we have a worksheet that we'll provide you to make it easy to do this. But number one, what time is it? What am I doing? How am I sitting? Where am I? And what is my energy level from a 1 to 10? 1 being the low energy, feeling really sluggish, really fatigued, 10 feeling really, really good. All right. So tracking these 5 components every couple hours throughout the course of your day for a couple of days. All right. So like I said, we do have this worksheet we can provide. So it's kind of just like takes a minute to fill out, very quick if you just keep it on your desk or by the couch or wherever you are in your kitchen. But it's also helpful to set alarms on your phone, just because often it's easy to forget. Or you could even do it in your calendar as well to just remind yourself to check in how you're doing. And this is the URL that will also be at the end of the presentation for you guys to grab that worksheet. So once you've tracked this for a couple of days, the second part is to go through the worksheet, or if you want to just track it in your own notebook, that's totally fine. But go through your days and circle the 5 moments where you had higher energy than the rest. Because there's going to be energy fluctuations, right, throughout the day. Some people are higher energy in the evening, other people right in the morning when they wake up. It's going to be different for everyone. But I want you to take note of what your higher energy moments had in common. Was it the time of day? I know for me personally, when I went through this exercise, I operate best in the morning. So my energy is high in the morning after I initially get out of bed. Sometimes it's a little hard to do, but once I get myself out of bed, my energy is fairly high. I know I can operate best in the morning. Is it the environment you're in? Is it when you're in your office, when you're in the kitchen, when you're outside? How are you feeling? Are you driving? Are you at your office? Are you somewhere else, right? Out in the world? Activity, what are you doing physically? What are you thinking about as well? We could see this as a mental or thinking activity, or also a physical activity such as work or exercising or whatever else it is. What's your posture? Going back to that, right? Are you on the couch, kind of slumped over watching TV? Or are you sitting at your desk? Are you going for a walk? Are you standing up? What is it? Another good thing to note here is also what your previous meal or snack was, because this really affects energy levels a lot. And becoming aware of that can help you on days where you need more energy, you need to be more alert, monitoring how much water you're intaking, what you're eating prior to maybe that big event or whatever you need to be doing can be very powerful. And then we're going to go through and do the exact opposite, right? So you have that energy tracking sheet. You're going to go through it and circle when you were feeling low energy, kind of sluggish and down and whatever it may be. What did those have in common, right? Was it, going back to this, was it the time of day? Was it environment, activity, posture, that previous meal or snack? Now, the third part of this is actually implementing what you've learned into your own life to really start crafting your life as much as possible around this newfound knowledge that you now have. So maybe you know that, after you eat lunch, or you eat a heavy lunch or a heavy breakfast, you're not really feeling the best, or you're feeling kind of slow for the next hour, right? Maybe you don't plan anything that you need a lot of focus around for that hour, right? Totally fine to do if you like having a big lunch or breakfast, whatever it may be. But maybe you do something that's a little less focused that you need to place on that activity. And so you can do this in a variety of different ways, right? As much as you can. Once you know where your higher energy is, whether it be a certain activity, whether it be a time of day, whether it be what you just ate or your posture, whatever it is, when you start to feel sluggish or down or just depleted, you can incorporate something that you've now discovered through your self-awareness activity here to really bring that energy into your life. And it's also good to create, like I mentioned earlier, the blah list to track, what's going to give me a little bit of boost. And it might just be listening to your favorite song or standing up out of your chair, maybe doing some stretches. But being aware of that is really, really important. And then how can you shift your schedule throughout your day to incorporate those higher energy drivers, right? As much as possible. If you do operate best when you're sitting at your desk working, don't, sit at the kitchen table or on your couch to do work. Is it the time of day, right? Can you incorporate some more creative work or things that take more focus when you're sharpest at night or in the morning? Posture, movement, food, and water intake. You can really incorporate this into a lot of different areas. So now we're going to get into the top energy generator tips across the USA. So this is something, as I mentioned, we're always chatting with people, and this is what people recommend to really create more energy to drive productivity and beyond. So the first is to, as much as possible, eliminate decision making. We have up to 35,000 decisions that we make every single day as human beings, some big, some small. But what happens is that your brain is constantly going through making these decisions, and it reaches this point of decision fatigue where the more choices you make throughout your day, the harder each one becomes for your brain. And this is why, the end of the day, we can be pondering what to eat for dinner for 30 minutes as we're just getting hungrier and hungrier, is because you've likely reached a point of decision fatigue where it's harder for your brain to process that. So you spend more time going over it, And in doing that, it's causing more fatigue to occur. So a great way to eliminate decision making is to start your day off proactively. And we alluded to this on our first workshop. But really what's happening is when you start the day off proactively, you're not allowing your brain to go into that thought triggered fight or flight response, right? If you're looking at your phone first thing in the morning, you could read a stressful news article or email or whatever it may be. Your brain is going into that thought triggered fight or flight response, which is already causing energy drain. So I recommend creating a list of the top 3 things that you want to do the night before in the morning so that you're clear and you're focused. Okay, when I get up, I am ready to go. I know what I'm going to do. The second piece of this is the morning questions that we went over in the first workshop, right? Instead of looking at your phone first thing in the morning, turning your phone on airplane mode or shutting it off for about a minute or 2, asking yourself the 3 morning questions. Number 1, what can I look forward to today? Number 2, what has potential to stress me out or worry me today? And how will I choose to respond to it? And number 3, how do I want to feel at the end of today? And what do I need to do or not do to make that a reality? All right, those are the 3 morning questions. And then there's other things like, calendar blocking, making sure your calendar is ready to go. You know what you're going to be doing. You don't need to be pondering it. And using energy-based work as much as you can. So this means that if you know you work best in the morning, don't necessarily schedule really tedious or administrative things if you have more creative work to do in the morning, right? Put that in the morning and move those things maybe to the afternoon. So being aware of this for your own work or your own life is really, really important to do. Now, the second piece of this is to really seek clarity and be aware of the intention that you're setting for the day and how you want to feel at the end of that day, which is part of the morning questions. But this is a really common theme in the people that we've interviewed all across the country is they're constantly seeking clarity on, okay, how do I want to be today? How do I want to put myself out into the world? How do I want my energy to be? And they're seeking that clarity. So we suggest doing this through a very simple method. It's called the 1-word method. And it's going to a place of clarity that's just literally 1 word, right? So when someone thinks of you, what's the 1 word they think of? You can think about this for yourself right now, right? Say that I'm talking with someone that knows you. Maybe they know you very well. Maybe they're a coworker that you don't know very well. What's the 1 word they would use to describe you, right? It could be a variety of different words. Here's a bunch here, but you can choose whatever it is for you. And most importantly, is the word that they're saying aligning with how you actually want to be? So the 1-word method is to choose a word. And at the end of the day, you can ask yourself, was I blank today, right? So was I energizing today? Was I positive today? Was I understanding, productive, appreciative, whatever it was? Creating this clarity in the morning and throughout the day, becoming aware of it in whatever you're doing is really, really powerful to do. So for the second exercise we're going to do, we're going to break off into groups again and just share with the group, what your 1 word is for today. Some people create a 1 word for the entire week or the entire month, but you can do it day to day as well. So share with the group what's the 1 word, how you want to really put yourself out into the world. And number 2, why is that important to you? Why does that matter to you? Right. And as everyone comes back in, feel free to share your 1 word in the chat. I would love to see them all. And what your 1 word is for today. Maybe some of you chose for the week or for the month, but feel free to include those in. I always like saying this. I was saying this with the other workshops, but it kind of spawns some ideas when you see other people sometimes as well. So let me go ahead and share my screen here for the last couple minutes. All right. So continuing on here. Now, the third component is really to make a choice to generate energy throughout the day. And this seems pretty straightforward, but often we're not intentionally taking time to think about generating energy throughout the day, right? Maybe we do when we're making another cup of coffee at 2 p.m. But in terms of generating it naturally, it takes a decision and it takes awareness and it takes a choice to do so. And a really great book that I love by Brendan Bouchard, who is that quote from the beginning, where he talks about that a power plant doesn't have energy, it creates it, it generates it, just like a human being does, is Top Performance Habits. And he gets into how the really the high top performers across the world, and they did some I forget the exact number, but the study was, millions of people, millions of these top performers. And what they were doing is they were taking time to make a choice to generate energy throughout the day so they could stay focused, they could stay disciplined, they could stay productive. And they did it in very simple ways. So here are a couple of them. Every 55 minutes, if you're allowed to do that, or if you have the opportunity to, every 55 minutes, even if every couple hours, to close your eyes and breathe for 60 seconds to reset. This is, again, something, the power of breath, we're going to get into in the Using Stress to Your Advantage workshop later on in the series, but really taking time to just close your eyes. A lot of us work in front of computers all day long. So setting an alarm to close your eyes, it gives your eyes a break, it gives your brain a break, and just taking a minute to breathe in and out can be really, really powerful and restorative within the mind and body. Only takes 1 minute. The second piece of this is to make sure you're drinking water, ideally every hour. But what I do is I'll just have, a mug next to me on my desk, and just make sure you're consciously aware of drinking water. And when you do start to feel sluggish, instead of reaching for maybe another coffee, drink water first, because that might be all you need. Set an intention for the next hour as well in this small break that you're taking. So whether it be and again, we can use the one word. So coming back to that one word, whatever you chose for yourself, is that how you're going to be for the next hour, right? When something unexpected comes up or stressful or whatever, going back to that one word and choosing that for yourself, for the interactions you're having with other people, for your work, whatever it is that you're doing during that next hour. And you can also set an intention, in a more task-oriented thing, that you're going to complete it within the hour, that you're definitely going to get it done within this hour so it doesn't bleed out into other areas. And then the final piece of this is doing some form of physical movement actually is really going to help throughout the day. So it could just be, raising your arms over your head a couple times as you're sitting at your desk. It could be doing those jumping jacks. It could be going for a walk or stretching or doing some yoga or running, whatever it is for you. But incorporating that throughout the day, just making that intentional choice was a really, really big theme. So today we talked about the simple science behind energy drain. A lot of it is actually starting out in our minds, which affects our body. So this is when, you wake up in the morning, 2 hours later, you can feel completely tired and just not the best, is because what's happening likely is that thought triggered fight or flight is going off, affecting the mind, but also the body as well. Identifying your own personal energy drivers. I'm going to share the link to the worksheet in a second, so you guys can grab that whenever you'd like. And the top strategies across the US. So making sure that you're eliminating decision-making as much as possible. You're getting proactive in the morning and throughout the day. You are seeking clarity. So choosing one word throughout the day or throughout the week. And then also making the choice to generate energy, whether it be through what you're eating, whether it be through drinking water, whether it be through movement. Making sure you're being intentional, ideally every hour, but every couple of hours works as well. And here is the website. I'll also put this in the chat so you guys have it. But I think we have a couple minutes here. I'm happy to answer any questions as usual.